really for us, it's seeing our donor experience officers have these productive, meaningful conversations and how they're moving that relationship and our university forward.
Welcome to the EverTrue Innovators podcast, where we meet the innovative voices behind the ideas moving fundraising forward.
Hello, welcome, and woo pig suey. I'm Hannah Davis, joined by my co-hosts Madeline Turner and Keith Manieri for this EverTrue Innovators podcast. Today, we tackle the age-old question: is scaling personalized outreach across thousands of donors as challenging as it seems?
Perhaps, but not impossible with the right structure.
Exactly. The University of Arkansas's Donor Experience program created a scalable, relationship-first cadence that re-engaged donors, deepened alumni connections, and surfaced meaningful planned giving conversations.
Let's hear from the University of Arkansas winners of the Donor Experience Excellence Award.
Hannah, thank you. Madeline, thank you as well. I'm so honored to be a part of this podcast with you and EverTrue, and of course for the University of Arkansas to receive this award. Thank you, and thank you to your team. Hannah, to really address the question you asked about how we are defining success, I think rather unconventionally at the moment. Our program is still new, so we got started in October of 2025. It's really the latter part of October. And so before our team was really fully on board, had their portfolios refined and ready to go, really understood the platform and the cadence structure, we were getting into the holidays. So, for us, I still look at our program as still refining, still learning, still growing. And so success kind of goes hand in hand with that, and that we're really defining success as any win, big or small, that moves the university forward in some way. And so that might be just getting an update on a new email address or phone number. That may be hearing a really powerful story that a donor tells, based on experiences they had when they were students here on campus. And of course, the monetary wins are important, and we've seen some success through the fundraising efforts. But really for us, it's seeing our donor experience officers have these productive, meaningful conversations and how they're moving that relationship and our university forward.
Talking about one of those wins specifically, I think one really exciting win involved uncovering a $500,000 planned gift opportunity from a previous unresponsive donor. Walk us through what happened and what made that moment possible.
Well, three things really, I think, played into that, Madeline. One, a donor experience officer who is highly intuitive and has kind of the raw skills to really develop rapport and guide conversation. So that was critical. Two, I think in advance of our program launching, our DXOs received a lot of training from our Division of Advancement colleagues. So the DXOs had met with our planned giving officers and team several times for training on the clues and the cues they needed to pay attention to in conversations with their donors. But really, I would define the success coming from polite persistence, because our donor experience officer had attempted contact with this donor a number of times, had reached out through all the traditional ways, phone call, email, multiple times through the cadence structure. And then she just decided, I am going to go analog and write a handwritten note to this donor and see what happens. Of course, some time passed, and she heard nothing. And then, really out of the blue, one day, the donor had connected with the university because of that handwritten outreach to provide updated contact information so that we could pivot back to conversing with him through email and phone. And then, our donor experience officer had this really robust and meaningful conversation, uncovered this planned gift. And now this donor will be visiting campus in the next month and having a campus tour and this opportunity to really reconnect.
That's incredible. I think it also, we've had a lot of these conversations and just the importance of continuing the touch points. I think on average it's 6 touch points, but it sounds like your donor experience officer went above and beyond. And I think that handwritten note and that level of personalization, um, that's something that I think many organizations could learn from.
Thank you. I think it's a matter of outreach that also feels different and unique. And certainly, this is a digital experience that we're creating through the cadence structure. But I also think to diversify that with surprise outreach and touch points that people aren't expecting. I don't see a handwritten personal message show up in my mailbox very often. So we know that that stands out. And it also says to the recipient, we value you enough that we are going to stop and we are going to draft something really meaningful and drop it in the mail to you.
What have you learned about the role that those types of touch points or moments play in building deeper donor relationships?
I think um, what's really surprised us is how surprised the donors are by this level of connection and outreach. Specifically, donors that have not heard from us in many years or who have never had someone personally contact them from the university to say thank you or just to say, what motivated you to give? What inspired you? Please tell me your story. I want to hear from you. And so, what we learned is that just created a pathway to really develop and build on that rapport and have deeper conversations. And of course, provide more touch points along the way. So I think it's the surprise that we've seen from the donors. And I think it also has reinforced that this DXO model is really about relationship building. It is about covering a gap in portfolios. Major gift officers can only balance so many donors and prospects at a time. And so this allows us, to scale outreach, but yet it's done in such a meaningful and impactful way. The University of Arkansas has more than 216,000 contactable alumni. And so there's absolutely no way that Frontline can manage that volume. But our DXOs through our program are really able to personalize their outreach and make this contact feel special with donors in a way that we haven't had before.
I want to dive into that a little bit more, just because this program does support all of like a very large number of donors who, to your point, may not have received that one-to-one outreach before. So how does this kind of change the way that your team thinks about donor coverage and pipeline development by taking this approach?
So in terms of pipeline, we've always thought about that being based on a giving threshold. So when you get to this point, it's time to move you to the next stage in pipeline development and management. I think this has demonstrated, at least to me, and I don't want to speak on behalf of leadership or others in the institution, but it's demonstrated to me that it's really about the relationship management, and the pipeline moves as the relationship moves. And so we keep our eye on how that relationship is evolving and developing, and at what stage then we need to start introducing others to the conversation. So, when is it time for us to bring a subject matter expert from one of our college schools and units to the conversation to really help foster deeper dialogue about that donor prospects, interests, and exploring those new ideas and concepts with them. So I think that's changed a little bit, moving from thinking about the threshold as being, based on giving, to really thinking about how we are actually moving the relationship
Mm.
through colleagues, and who are all bringing their unique perspectives to add and build that relationship.
I love that because I mean, we talk so often about the number of touch points that are needed in order to really resonate and get through to someone. But I think also having multiple voices across your team and campus, being able to kind of steward that person through is really an amazing journey for that donor to be able to take as well and feel connected. Um, I know one of the things, like in terms of thinking about kind of different things that you've tried out, the different channels that you've used, video was one of them that you're experimenting with and you're
Mhm.
working through right now. Can you talk a little bit about what you think is working and what you've seen resonate, and maybe on the flip side, what you are looking to potentially change or try something else with?
Well, the DXOs love video as an outreach tool because it really allows their personalities to shine and for them to present themselves really authentically. It's fun to see their ideas come to fruition and how they want to take our donors on campus as part of this video experience, filmed by iconic landmarks. Or we have a tradition at the University of Arkansas. It's our senior walk, which is actually miles and miles of names that have been etched into senior walk for all of our graduates. So once you're an alum, your name is here on senior walk. And so the DXAs will actually go out and shoot a video by the donor's name on senior
Cool.
walk so they can see that. You'd actually be surprised the number of people who have never seen their name on Senior
Mhm.
Walk. So it really makes the video an incredible outreach tool. By reconnecting with many of these traditions on campus. So I think we've seen success with that. The DXOs have had a good response to video outreach. One of the interesting things we have noticed is that may come later down the road. So some of the video feedback we've received, it's come 2 months later. And
Mm.
so, that suggests to me that maybe that hung around in the inbox for a while before the recipient had a chance to take a look at it, or maybe it resonated and it was something that they wanted to go back to. But we have seen that we know it's important, we know it's impactful and well received, but it may not get you the most immediate response. I
Yeah.
think, and we're still experimenting, we're still learning, and having a lot of fun with props and how messages are presented and backdrops and content. And, that's really one of the best parts about this program is the flexibility and the nimbleness to experiment and really see, where we're gaining traction and where we need to make refinements.
Yeah.
In this spirit of testing, learning, adapting, and knowing that y'all really have been experimenting since just October,
Hmm.
it sounds like there's been a lot of learnings already. What would you tell another advancement team that's considering building a DXO program? Any advice, lessons learned, or things that you do differently?
I would say, it's a long-term relationship strategy. This is not a short-term fundraising tactic. So you have to be aware that the results are not just going to come to you immediately. If we're looking at results as purely the gifts that are generated through the program. So I think you have to be patient and understand that the results could come to fruition years and years later. We just have no way of knowing. It's really about planting that seed. I think too, one thing I've really learned is how important a collaboration across campus is for the success of this program. Our donor experience officers have to be, have to have knowledge and some insight on the vast number of programs and priorities that exist on this campus. So without major gift officers and other subject matter experts pouring into them to help them understand what's important for these conversations, how to really highlight impact, how to really highlight need, I don't think their conversations would be as fruitful as they have been. I guess the last thing I would say too is, I mentioned earlier the opportunity to be flexible and nimble with our program, to constantly be reframing messaging, to think about what resonates, because that changes. The university ecosystem is so dynamic. There are new milestones, there are new highlights and points of pride that we can share every week. And so it gives them an opportunity to continue to share with the donor and connect with them on things that donor may not have heard about. So being able to be flexible with the program has been such a benefit.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for your willingness to share about your experience thus far and lessons learned and inspiration from the future. I mean, knowing how new this program is and the impact that it's already having. I know you mentioned that it's a long-term relationship building program, but we're excited to celebrate all the big and small wins that are already occurring along the way. And so, congratulations on this award. And thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really great to get to talk to you both today, and we're excited to see how the program continues to grow.